Any public comment before we go into closed session?
Right here.
Do you have anything? No. Start the meeting, please. Council, could you please read out in closed session?
The golf course lease, upcoming RFP, and reclassification of IT tech positions in the police department. Staff was given direction, but no further action was taken.
Okay. Daniel, please lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity to come together, Lord, come together tonight, Lord, and we just pray that all that is said and done would bring honor and glory to your name. We thank you for the opportunities that we have and the privileges that we have living in such a fine city as Ripon, Lord. Pray that we could continue to do well with what we've been given, Lord. We lift up all the first responders that are always putting their life out there to take care of us, that you'd continue to look over and protect them. We thank you for those that serve on the school in the school board and the teachers, Lord. And we just in this season, in this Christmas season, Lord, we also just pray for those that are less fortunate and that are struggling during this time, Lord, that you would be looking out for them and that you would place a burden on our hearts to reach out to those that are in need and that we would see that space. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. A roll call, please.
Councilmember Dean. Here. Gary Barton.
Present.
Daniel DeGraff.
Here.
Vice Mayor Leo Zuber.
Here.
Mayor Mike Restuccia.
Present. Okay, this is public discussion. If anybody has something that they'd like to talk about that is not on the agenda, please come up to the mic. If it's on the agenda, we'll talk about it later. Please form a line. Okay. Approval of the minutes of November 14th.
I'll move to approve. Second.
You're going to do voice, right? Didn't you say?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Gary abstained.
Oh, Gary abstains. Sorry. Can't read. Okay, you're up, Lisa. And I get to go home.
You wish.
Excellent. We will do the council reorganization. The council reorganization is dictated by section 2.04020 of the Ripon Municipal Code. It states that the designated mayor and vice mayor must be queried to accept or decline the positions. I've queried both Leo Zuber and Daniel DeGraff whether they would be willing to serve in the respective seats of mayor and vice mayor. Both have confirmed, so we will continue with the seating as noted in the agenda. According to the code, seat 1 will be for Mayor Zuber. Seat 2 here will be for Vice Mayor DeGraff. Seat 3 will be for Gary Barton. Seat 4 will be for Dean Euchre over here. And seat 5 will be for Mike Restuccia. Yes. That's why we put them there for you. Anyways, yep, please take your respective seats, and then Mr. Mayor, you may take over.
Is approval of the agenda as posted. Does anybody have any items they want to pull from the consent calendar?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull items 1.2 E and F.
I would like to pull 1.1A and 1.4D. Anybody else?
Nope. I'll make a motion. Oh, you doing voice?
No, now you can use your computer.
Who moved me? Okay. Short memory.
Everybody voted? All right. Next item is the consent calendar. We have a motion for approval as amended.
I'll make a motion as amended.
Second, if I'm not the mover.
I don't see the stuff on the screen. There we go. All right, now we'll take the items that were pulled. First, 1.18. I just had one question. I noticed that the sales tax for this year is about 70,000 behind last year. Is there going to be another one of those true up points that might get corrected?
There was a recent true up in a month or two ago, or this month? I'm sorry? In November.
Okay,
So we just had a recent true up, and the first one we had in the year, there was quite a difference. I think the true up was less. This most recent one was very similar to what we saw last year.
okay.
What I'll do, I was planning, after I get the December financials, we'll get halfway through the fiscal year. I could update the city council and show you the graph I've been showing with sales tax and
Okay,
where some of the differences are.
sounds good. Mr. Barton, 1.2E.
Yes, I'll cover both E and F.
Okay.
Kai, pretty significant increase in the cost-sharing portion for the city to operate the pool. You described maybe most of those as the result of inflation, which is understandable, although the increase was much higher than the rate of inflation. So I'm looking for maybe just a description of what you anticipate going forward in that regard, and then also in the same line of questioning, big number for capital improvements, and is there any additional deferred maintenance there that you're expecting? What should we be looking for in the next couple of years?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Barton. Most of the increases are due to salaries. So the California minimum wage went up for each of the last couple of years. And then Ripon Unified School District also got salary increases. And then the NOR systems who we contract with to do all the service on the pool and, all of, their wages went up and increased, and also the, pool chemicals and all the materials and stuff went up the last couple of years. So those percentages did go up. I guess the one silver lining to that is our income. Now that coming off of COVID, our income went up as well. So it offsets some of that. So I believe the total came in at 42,000 instead of the 34. They did redo all of the, I think in the staff report, we did mention, replastered the entire pool in 2017. They did some remodeling and replacement of doors, mainly the pool equipment room. They did some repairs in the pool equipment. They replaced all the doors, the door facing the swimming pool on the office, they did replace. And then this most recent one that you see in the invoice they redid the locker rooms. And so when we took a tour, it basically the whole thing was redone. Flooring, new epoxy flooring. They redid the walls. They took out and repainted the entire facility. the toilets are new, all that. So basically, those are both the boys and girls locker room, and then painting of the entire facility. And then as far as the future goes, there's nothing significant that we're aware of on the immediate horizon, but we do know with the running of an aquatic center, the equipment could fail. You could need, it's just kind of an ongoing thing. And then the doors that they replaced them with are supposed to be better doors, fiberglass, so they don't rust out. The original ones from 2002 were rusting out, and so they replaced the door jambs and all that. So eventually they will need to be replaced, but they should last a lot longer with the materials and what they've redone for both locker rooms and the exterior.
Thank you.
All right. My other item was 1.4D, which is the drone donation. I have nothing to say about the donation. But I was wondering if at some future meeting, we could get some sort of a report. Everybody's using drones, law enforcement is what we're doing with the drones. How often do we use them? What do we use them for? That sort of thing. Doesn't have to be tonight, but I would be interested, and I think the community might like to know what we do with these things.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can give you a short, brief summary right now if you would like.
Sounds good.
Drones are very beneficial to our patrol operations. We do have an unmanned aerial system program, and right now, we currently have one drone that we can deploy that works well. We basically deploy the drone approximately 5 times a year, which may not sound like much, but it is very beneficial when we have incidents such as search warrants. When we do crime scenes and we want to get an overhead view, when we have any kind of major accident traffic collision scene, we have to do a full diagram of where everything is, where the vehicle accident occurred. If there's any debris, we have to do a full diagram. It helps us be able to do deconstruct or reconstruction on that. It also is beneficial for those times that we do have missing persons, maybe down by the river or whatnot, and it's something that is of more serious nature, and we feel that we can deploy the drone and get it aerial and be able to look for this person. It's also beneficial when we are looking for any kind of illegal encampments down by the river. Sometimes we'll get calls down there, we can't locate it on foot, and we can get the aerial drone up there and be able to locate it and help us be able to take care of the situation. But it's very, very beneficial for officer safety. For example, there was about 2 years ago where we were assisting another outside agency with a search warrant, and we had the drone up, and there's a situation in the backyard that we were able to get an overhead view on, and it helped us officer safety wise, and also helped the other agency for any kind of liability issue. A dog ended up charging one of the deputies. We were able to relay that information. The deputy was able to use non-lethal force on the canine. But the great thing about not only the drone that was able to see that, we also had video of what happened because the agency was getting accused of something else. So it also helps for a liability issue as well. So.
I got a question on it. And while you're describing it, we might as well ask. But do we, what we have or what we're going to be getting through this, do you have, is one like 3D model for the reconstruction of sites? Do you use any 3D modeling or anything like that, or just the aerial imagery of it?
Just the aerial imagery, yes.
Okay. And then the other one, I know several different attachments and things that go onto them for different imaging types, but do you use infrared for heat signatures and stuff at nighttime, or?
We do have night vision, yes.
Okay.
Can I make a real quick comment? Because you would normally make this comment, but I'd just like to thank the Ripon Rotary Foundation for the donation.
Yes, absolutely.
True. You have anything? All right. Thank you. Much appreciated.
You're welcome, Mayor.
With that, I would entertain a motion on the 4 items.
Make a motion that we approve the 4 items.
Second that.
There you go. Okay, moving on. Item 2, resolutions, resolution of City Council adopting the electronic message center usage policies and procedures.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Mayor.
Zeiderbark.
Yeah, I will take that one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members. As you recall, in June of this last year, we did go ahead and approve the purchase of a electronic message center sign. It'll be a double-sided sign that'll be located out in front of City Hall. It's a monument-style sign. That's getting closer to installation. They've built the outside infrastructure for the signs, and the signs are in, so they'll be probably pouring foundation on that and getting things set here within the next month on that sign. So we did, when we did purchase that, we said we'd bring back a policy, a usage policy and procedures for that. So that's what's in front of you tonight. We did put together as Exhibit A here in your staff report, some guiding principles for the usage of the sign, but then also use of the electronic message centers by other organizations. I think when we originally approved the sign, we talked about like Ripon nonprofits being able to use the sign. So there's some parameters surrounding what they can and cannot put on that sign. As well as at the very end of that policy is just talking about City of Ripon, being able to use that sign. Basically, the deputy city clerk will be operating or programming the sign and operating and putting the messages in. And so there will be an application that we'll put together for, like, say, outside organizations to be able to submit ahead of time so we can preview those, make sure they're in line with our policies and guidelines. So with that, I won't go through the whole usage policy, but if you got questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment if I can. I read it, and as I was going through it, I kept thinking, what about this? What about this? And you kind of hit, I don't know what it should be, but it looked reasonable to me. So you answered the questions I had as I was going through it, so I appreciate that.
Okay. In the second bullet under guiding principles, it says persons or organizations not associated. I'm just wondering if it ought to be just the opposite, that it's limited to groups that are associated to this with the city. Because I was sitting there trying to think in my mind, where are you going to draw the line when they're not associated?
Right.
But if they are associated, it just seems that's just one thing. The other thing that it doesn't have is any kind of a statement about what the intended use for that thing is. There's a big long list of things you can't do, but it doesn't, there's no overarching description of what it is you want to do. And I think that would help slow people down from coming in here and saying, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. Okay. Under the first bullet, under use of, you have all these non-political things you're supposed to do, but a legislative representative gets to use it. I'm wondering if that ought to be a legislative body or legislative organization, raise it a level so that you don't have a congressman coming in here and doing it. He has to be coming here representing some organization, some body, some message that they want to put out there rather than something he or she might want to do.
That's a good point. I kind of read it as organization. You're right, it's not clear.
Yeah. And this one, again, it's the first one at the top of the second page, that city-sponsored events will have priority. What I don't have, and maybe it needs to wait until it's actually set up and running, is an idea of how long is a message going to show? When you look at this thing, you do a fairly good job on the first page of saying, basically, you're limited to one sheet. You can't have a scroll. Which is good, because the last thing you want is somebody driving by trying to get back there and get to the last of the message while they're running over some kid down at the intersection. But I don't know, and maybe it just needs to wait until it's done. And I understand the city having priority, but there's nothing in there about how that priority is going to be established and that sort of thing. And as this thing gets good, trust me, there's in not too distant future, somebody's gonna come in here and say, I gave you that thing, how come it's not there? That's all. I mean, I agree with Mike. It's good. I tend to be one of those people that looks for the things that somebody is gonna grab and make you pay for later on. That's all.
I think some of the, about the timing of the message and stuff is in our sign ordinance. So we do have a section in our sign ordinance that deals with electronic message centers, but I'll double check that to make sure. Cause I do believe when we went through that, there's a duration that a message has to be on the sign. And it can't be longer than a certain duration because you don't want your eyes off the road for that long. So I'll double check that. These other ones are good points, and I think we could actually kind of amend the policies and procedures and maybe try to include some of that and bring it back at the next meeting. This was kind of a first blush at this thing, so to see if we're on point with it. There's not that type of urgency behind it. I don't think it'll be up and running by the next meeting, so we could bring this back with some of these suggestions in it.
That section of the sign ordinance is going to control this. It needs to be referenced in here so that the connection is there from the get-go.
Exactly, okay.
Mr. Mayor, regarding your first question, so it's essentially a double negative as it's written. So the EMC will not be used, and then the first point is by any organization, person not associated with Ripon. Do you think that's confusing, or that seems clear to me? It's not going to be used by anyone who's not part of the city of Ripon.
I'm not
And I
saying
thought
that.
that's what you were.
Yeah, no,
wanting to
what
get to.
I tend to be the other way around, that it's a positive statement rather than a negative statement. Rather than saying these people are not gonna do it, then who is?
It limits it
It
to
limits it.
specifically to that, right?
Right,
It's a more
exactly.
limiting statement where double negative could be open-ended still,
Yes.
to a certain extent.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with open-ended, that's what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. No, I understand that.
I think there's a way to, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else? And I will, again, say, I agree. It's a good start. That thing has the potential to be a very good thing. It also has the potential to cause a lot of a headache or two. And the more of those we can get rid of, the better.
And I just do want to remind the council too, we'll bring this back obviously for the next meeting. And as we operate this thing and learn more about it, we can obviously adjust the resolution and adjust the policy
Right.
if we see things cropping up. So just keep that in mind also.
All right, thank you. Item 3, public hearings, 3A, development agreement, annual review.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take that one. This is again our annual kind of housekeeping item where we go through the development agreements. We did take it to the Planning Commission last month, and they reviewed all the development agreements and looked at the terms and conditions that were in each of them, and did find them to be in compliance with the terms and conditions. So this is the staff report is their report to the city council that they did their due diligence on that and are recommending approval from the city council. There's a list of the active development agreements in there, and there's also a list in the back and a map for the active development agreements. I won't go through all those, but be happy to answer any questions, and would also like to remind you this is a public hearing.
In the public hearing on the development agreement report, is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment?
I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I received through email, 2 letters from a Mr. Marty Harris. They're lengthy and they have, various attachments. So we will enter them into our records for correspondence, but I will not be reading it out into this right now. But it does have to do with the item 3A for development agreements, and there's a number of, different Manteca Bulletin articles attached, but I've given each of you guys a copy on the dais there.
All right,
And he
Thank
does
you.
say if you have any questions or would like to contact him personally, he has his personal information on there for you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is an action item too, after we close, okay, so we'll close the public hearing. Is there any further discussion from the council? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion on the item.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second
That's
for
to
approval.
Yeah.
All right, motion carries. 3B, PFFP Capital Funds Annual Report. Is this yours too? Who's doing this one?
That's me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Yes, this is our annual public hearing for our capital fees for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. It's guided by Government Code Section 66000. So I have attached the report along with our fund balance summaries for you guys in the staff report. The PFFP report was prepared in accordance with that government code, and it's very consistent with the prior years. Action tonight after the public hearing is to approve the annual PFFP report for the year ending June 30th, 2023. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
all right. Are there any questions for Lisa from the council? Then we will open the public hearing on the PFFP report. Anybody from the public wishes to comment? Questions? Hearing none, then we will close the public hearing. This needs action too? All right,
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the PFFP report as presented.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Maybe. Oh. All right. Moving on, ordinances. The second reading and adoption, ordinance number 926. This is the ordinance that has to do with restrictions on recreational vehicle parking in residential areas. Mr. Zeiderbark.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. So at the last meeting, you recall, we went through the first reading and introduction of the ordinance. There was some suggestions from city council for clarifications in there. So staff did go through the ordinance, made the right modifications for clarification in there. There is a red line version of what we changed from the first reading to the second reading here. None of the intent was changed. It's just some of the wording to clarify. I think what we were trying to intend in the first reading is in this final version, hopefully. So if you got questions, I'd be happy to answer any of them.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Zeiderbark? Any public comment on this item? Did a good job. I mean, I took care of the questions that did come up last month, so I appreciate that.
I have a quick question for the chief. I'm sure you had a chance to review the changes that were made, which is my primary concern with this regarding law enforcement. You're satisfied with where this resolution sits?
There are no other questions or comments. I would entertain, see, this is a second reading and we waive the second reading and adopt the ordinance.
Unless you want Lisa to read it.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Getting there.
I would make a motion to waive the second reading and approve the ordinance. Adopt the ordinance.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Why? Because you.
I can put my side out. Yes, you can.
Will you guys quit arguing with each other? Gee. Listen to this. All right, moving on. Discussion items. Water, sewer, garbage, enterprise funds, annual rate adjustment analysis. Mr. Werner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a short presentation, just explaining some of the slides that were, or some of the figures that were included in the staff report. Number one, there you go, thank you. Back in 2020, the city council directed staff to go out with a 5-year rate study, and that was approved under the guidelines of Proposition 218 by the public for utility rate increases that would happen from February 1, 2021 through 2025. And you can see those that were approved in that Prop 218 on this table. The first 3 years, 2021, 22, and 23, have been implemented as they were approved. And as the city council approved this, also directed staff to bring this back every year to review the financials and confirm or adjust whether the rate increases for the current year were to happen. Obviously, you can't increase those, but you can reduce those. And in the last 5-year cycle that we did this, there were a number of reductions that were made through this process. So it's been a worthy process. So just wanted to discuss are essentially the same. The yellow bars are the operating funds and the projected expenses in the operating fund. This is for the Water Enterprise Fund. Blue is the debt service, and then green is the transfer to the capital, the Enterprise Capital Fund for water. The black line on there is the ending balance, the projected ending balance of where we thought it was going to be, and the red line is the target balance over time. And then on the bottom, those percentages, those were the approved percentages in the 218. So for February 1, 2024, a 2% increase is being recommended. The fund has seen a significant increase in operating expenses, largely a result of the inflation that's happening in the economy. Right now, we're estimating the operating balance to be about $670,000 lower than what was initially projected at the end of the 5-year period. The positive is all of the transfers that were included in the projections are expected to happen to the Water Enterprise Capital Fund. So with this fund, we are, for February 1, 2024, recommending a 2% increase. For the Sewer Enterprise Fund, same type of formatting that I previously described. This one has not been impacted by inflation as much as the Water Fund. So it is operating a little bit better than what we initially had projected. The ending balance is currently projected to be about $160,000 higher than what was initially projected in the 5-year study. And then all of the recommended transfers are expected to happen in the Sewer Enterprise Capital, which does include the transfers that are being made for the future wastewater treatment plant. That's not going to cover 100% of the expenses, but it will reduce. It's an expensive project, and those transfers will reduce the amount of bonds we will have to get in future rate increases. So that is a 4% increase that's being recommended in the Sewer Enterprise Fund. The last one has been the fund that has been the most impacted from what was originally projected in the 5-year study. And that has been largely a result of regulatory requirements. And we've talked a lot about it with Senate Bill 1383. So actually this month or last month, we have just started bringing solid waste to the sorting facility. So that is something new. But obviously there's been other regulatory requirements that have been happening. For 23-24, we've experienced about $190,000 increase in the operating fund. It's about 8% higher, or 8% of the overall expenses. And then in 24-25, with this the Senate Bill 1383, an increase of about 12%. That's almost $300,000. And really, the garbage fund has been heavily impacted, not just these 2 years, but over the 5-year period. And it's really in the disposal fees. The different folks we send the trucks to dispose of them, they have been dealing with a number of regulatory requirements over the 5-year period, and those have really been transferred to us. So we've seen a significant increase in disposal fees. What this has resulted in is the operating balance being projected to be $110,000. So it's much lower than what we're anticipating, about $630,000 lower than what we had anticipated in the 5-year rate study. The reason we're recommending to continue with the 4% and not going out for a new 218 for this fund right now is this is a fund that does not have debt associated with it. So there's a certain comfort level with allowing the balance to get that low. We've had a lot of discussions with Jilton about what the fee is going to be. We have those numbers. James in Public Works has gone through and estimated the operating impacts of doing that. But we want to be able to operate at least for a year. So we're going to watch this very closely. And at some point, we may bring back the council an update on this, where we're at, and if there is a need to go out for 218 sooner. But right now, it's so new, it would be hard to project out what those impacts could be. The impacts with that has not only been to the operating balance, but also to the transfers. We initially projected about $1.4 million being projected to the Garbage Enterprise Capital Fund. That has not come to fruition. We're projecting to only transfer about half of that, $740,000. So that's something when we go out for another 218, we're gonna have to look at that too, and how to make sure that the capital replacement, specifically the garbage trucks over time, that we have the money in place to do that. The other issue, we just now talked a lot about regulatory impacts, but all 3 utility funds, there's different regulations that we're responding to. It's been more with the state. We do show 2 years of those expenses. This year, it was about a $30,000 increase in the regulatory cost. And that equates to about 5% of an average resident's utility bill is what they're paying for regulatory impacts. We're continuing to monitor this. We've done improvements into our accounting procedures to make sure we're trying to capture this as much as possible. So every year, I think we're getting a little bit better on estimating what those expenses are. And then lastly, this slide was from 2021. But I thought it still shows how competitive we are. In 2021, the overall bill for an average resident with average use that we have here was about $108 a month. With the changes that we're talking about for 2024, that number now would be $119 a month. So when you look at the other cities, which I'm sure they've had increases over the years as we are, but even if they didn't have an increase, we're still very competitive with where we're at in 2024 compared to the other cities. We'll update this in the next 5-year rate study, but I thought it still showed how competitive we are compared to other cities as far as utility rates. With that, I'm happy to answer any question. The action staff is requesting tonight is for the city council to consider the rate increases as included in the 5-year rate study.
I have a comment. The only thing that concerns me, Kevin, going forward is there were some surprises like the SB, whatever it was, that came about that we couldn't have planned for at the time. And we can't plan for it. I'm glad you said you're gonna look at it annually, because who knows what's coming down the pike next year, next month, that's gonna increase our costs again. Heck, Joanne's full-time doing, all the monitoring because of what the state's put on us. So yeah. I'm glad you're gonna look at it closely, because I don't think it's done.
Yeah, I don't think it's done either. And the other issue we have is not only what they put on us, it's what they're putting on the places where we're disposing of the solid waste. Because we got to communicate with them very closely too, because it impacts us.
On this, with the Prop 218, I mean, every 5 years you got to redo the study and gives us an opportunity to adjust that going forward anyway. So even if it's a 5-year and a couple of years were short, you can readjust at that point, right? It's not the end of the world if we're off by a little bit or not quite meeting those ranges. Well, but again, and most of it's out of our control. There's not much we can do. It's not because of operational inefficiencies on our side. It's things that we have to do. So.
My concern is the garbage.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at those graphs, we are at the bare minimum.
We are.
And if they come in here in the next 18 months and throw something else at us, our fees aren't gonna cover our expenses.
Absolutely. I share those concerns. And then even on the capital side, you know, the garbage trucks are a large expense and, you know, they need to be operating and we need to have them on the road. So we've had a good program of replacing those. And if we're not transferring the money over there, it causes other problems with the capital replacement.
Any other questions? You wanting to vote to put those in place?
Yes, please.
Do we have any public comment on this issue? Yes, sir.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Michael Muska, 20-year resident, Ripon. Could you go to the second to last slide of the presentation you just made? Yes, that one. Is that correct that sewer fees have decreased from 21-22 to 22-23 from $1.94 to $1.53?
Those are the regulatory expenses associated with the sewer fund.
So the expenses have decreased?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Any other questions or comments from the council? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion on the item.
I'll make a motion that we accept.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. All right, motion carries. Item 5B. Oh, this one's mine.
This is all you.
Council Committee and Task Force. In the packet was a blank form, correct? Could you get
The current,
what we are doing currently? Do we have that?
wait, the simple question is, does anybody want to change other than,
Well,
I mean,
but do I want to change you?
Well, maybe so, but I mean, but if we're happy with where everybody's at on the committees that they're on, maybe there's no
Well,
changes.
then I'll build off of that.
That's a good starting point anyways.
If anybody wants a change, then I need the answer from you by the end of the month. If I don't hear from you, then I'm gonna assume that what you're doing now is what you want to keep doing. If there's anything you'd like to be considered for differently, get in touch with me or Lisa by the end of December and let her know what they are, then I'll take those into consideration. We'll have something ready at the January meeting.
Deal.
Fair enough?
Very good.
That was quick. All right, moving on. Now we have Chief Sauer, you're on.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report.
Mr. Stevens.
I just want to mention, we did discuss some of the improvements earlier to the aquatic center, but we all have an open door policy. If you guys, I want to welcome you to come in. If you want a tour of any of the facilities, I know the mayor and I have toured the aquatic center. The volleyball facility has had a lot of improvements over the years. The sports park fields at Missland. And, you know, we've got some future projects coming on, but I just want to, you know, invite you guys to, if you're interested in that, I'll set up a tour. I'll take you out any of the facilities, any of the parks. We got a lot going on, and feel free to just come by and I'll set something up for you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Zeiderbart.
Yeah, just a really quick note, we will be having a planning commission meeting on Monday, so we we have a consistency finding or a consistency hearing for a potential project here in town. So if you are looking for something to do in the holiday season, come join us.
Mr. Peace.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick, I have a couple of items. First, the water usage for November, we were 19% lower than our 2013 usage. It was actually 2% higher than our last year's numbers. We did increase our water patrol throughout the month of November. We had over 144 contacts of people violating. We issued 2 penalties or repeat offenders. 75% or more than 75% of those people who were violating the rules were wrong days. So just getting people adjusted to the new watering schedule. Additionally, our free brush pickup is ongoing and it will be going through January 7th. And then we did hire 2 new employees who will be working at the recycling center part-time. We are going to be increasing those hours, the days and the hours, as soon as this weekend. So we'll be sending out a nixle informing the public of those changes, but essentially we'll be open every day of the week for some period of time. That's it.
All right, thank you. None? That's all. Mr. Werner?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Restuccia?
Yeah, the only thing I would like to say is that we had the Christmas tree lighting. I don't know how many of you were there, but they were standing up top looking down. There must have been 300 or 400 people. It was packed. It turned out very nice. And it wasn't that cold, so I think that's why a lot of people came out. It turned out nice.
Mr. Barton?
Yes, I just wanted to thank the outgoing mayor. Mike, I thought you just did a great job over the last year. And welcome the new mayor. Looking forward to your leadership over the next year, Mayor Zuber. Recognize Steve Verver for the award he was given, and sure appreciate your being a part of this community. Wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Hopefully we'll see you at the Christmas Light Parade, which is one of my favorite things every year in Ripon.
Thursday night.
Mr. DeGraff?
Well, it seems Gary likes to say everything that I'm going to say beforehand. I don't have a whole lot to say. I was going to remind Christmas parade. It seems Kelly's not here tonight to let us know. As usual, thank you to the members of the public who are here or listening online. And again, I'll reiterate Gary's comments on the former mayor's job and the new mayor. So good luck. Look forward to the next year.
And I'm looking forward to working with the new vice mayor.
Yeah, well, likewise.
Do we know how many of us are going to be there Thursday night? You got a running list? Okay.
There should be about 7.
And what time do we need to be there?
So the parade starts at 6. I'm thinking you should be there at probably 5:45-ish.
At the church.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you want to not have to walk a half a mile, you might want to get there a little before 5:45.
And we're gonna be warm this year. We're not gonna be in a golf cart freezing.
Oh, you guys look nice and cozy last year.
Are you riding or are you
I will
observing?
be observing with my family.
All right, well, make sure you let us know where you are so
I'll
we
find
can, okay.
Produce.
That's, well,
Would
I'm
never
not
do
gonna
that.
go there. All right, and with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank